I live stream your death. You're being tortured to your friends. People were coming in with their heads chopped off. 700 people came to in one day. Why did it succeed so horrifically in their live stream to terrorize us? They didn't stay there. We have had to prove. They didn't see this. I understand that, okay? They're the oppressed. So when you say, what can we do with it? The first thing is that.
오늘은 공공정책과 국제외교학으로 유명한 레이크만 대학교를 찾아왔는데요. 2006년 레바논 전쟁 당시 국무총리실 대변인을 역임하고 이스라엘군 첩보부대의 대령으로 퇴역하신 미리 아이젠 교수를 만나 이야기를 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. Thank you so much for having us and inviting us to your place.
It's wonderful to have you inside our institute in Herzliya.
I heard that you are one of the 2% women who achieved the rank of colonel in the military. That's an amazing achievement, must have been very difficult. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
I did a military career. In Israel, it's not exceptional to do a military career. It's not as given for women, but women are drafted. I was drafted at the age of 18, as Israelis are, both men and women, at the end of high school. I was drafted into Israeli military intelligence, and I did officer's course in Israeli military intelligence. Following that, I did over 20 years in Israeli military intelligence. I did positions, both what we call field combat positions. These are terms in the military. I was the S2 of a brigade, which is the intel officer of a brigade. I was the G2 of a division, which is the intel officer of a combat division. And I did different positions in the research departments, focused mainly on Israeli northern challenges in Lebanon and Syria over the years. And as time went on, also very much in the Palestinian arena. I retired from service as a full colonel, and my husband's also a colonel, and all three of my children are in their compulsory service as we speak right now, meaning this war caught us as a family where all three of my kids, two are officers, and the third is conscripted, but they're all serving in the military.
So the army is actually the day of life in Israel, right?
So it's always challenging to say that. It's an integral part of our lives. 70% of Israelis will be drafted at the end of high school. So first of all, 30% are not. And that's part of the differences within Israeli society, those who are drafted and those who are not. For those who are drafted, it's part of who we are. This isn't about we like the military. It's part of who we are. You're drafted. I know that in Korea, high school, studying, getting grades is a very important part. In Israel, when you are in high school, getting grades, you're not thinking about your university career. You're thinking about where you're going to end up in your military compulsory service. So when you think of your classroom, who are the best and the brightest? Who are the ones who got into the best universities in Korea? In Israel, where did you get drafted to into the military? Because it's not, I'll get better grades, I'll do more volunteering, I'll get into the best school. The military looks at you and says, this is what we see you as being good at. We want to use your capabilities. It's not necessarily what you want to do. It's what the military sees you as being good at. So I did a very diverse military career. I feel very fortunate. And that all, ended. I retired as a colonel 20 years ago.
But actually, as a woman to go into a military, is there certain kind of a area that you can go and limited in a certain area?
When I was drafted, long time ago, over 40 years, it was very limited, and I felt very fortunate because of languages, my English, also I know French, Arabic. When you know languages, that was one of the things that got me into military intelligence. Nowadays, everything is open to women. That means the combat units, infantry, tanks, artillery, anti-aircraft, engineering, everything is open. It's half men, half women. The 18-year-olds that are conscripted, afterwards those who go to officers' course, it's the exact same. Everything is open. There are still very singular things that are not open, and it's only because they say physically it's not fitting. But who said that's the way you should define what the capability is? It's not just about the physical aspect, it's the combination of physical, mental resilience, the camaraderie, the way you work together, not just the physicality. All of those different bodily aspects, let's take them into account and not say that means no. And that's one of the things that Israel has done systematically over the last 20 years. There's still work to be done, but it's pretty much equalizing out.
Let me shift some subject on the security-wise, because Israel is in the war. As I live here, I see the reality, and what is being reported is so different, especially from foreign media. So first of all, before going into the detail of the media, what's happening here in Israel? How is war going on right now?
On October 7th, Hamas, with other terror organizations, did a horrific, full-scale, unprecedented attack against Israel. That everybody does agree on. What most people are not aware of is that their multi-tiered attack included within it from October 7th, sending out 2 different visual social media narratives. Hamas from October 7th put out a narrative of terrorizing, and that's what goes on inside Israel. We are a country in trauma. We were terrorized by the visuals of October 7th. We were terrorized by the acts. The way that it was done was very much through social media, using all of the capabilities that anybody under the age of 30, savvy in social media, understands. It means I come in, I take your phone, and on your social media, whatever you're using, I live stream your death. You're being tortured to your friends, meaning not only did I just kill you, I also sent out a horrific, scary message of what I can do as a terrorist. I live streamed it to the friends on October 7th. 1,200 people were murdered, butchered in horrific ways. 25,000 people saw it live, and 125,000 people live, meaning they were in the room or saw it right there. 125,000 people saw it on the live stream. I'm not talking about all of us who saw it afterwards when it was shared on the social media. I'm talking about the actual live stream when it took place. That was a narrative that was sent out. But it was sent out to who? To the Israelis who were attacked, into their social media, to their echo box. And the stream that Hamas put out for you in Korea, for the Arab Palestinians in and around this area, both for the Arabic speakers and for the English speakers, is a different version. It's not about terrorizing. It's not about scaring. I am now going to show you how I am humiliating the oppressor, how I am doing something which is in the name of freedom, of dignity, so that these 2 parallel narratives have gotten further and further away in the international community, in the international media, overwhelmingly only present that version. And when you talk to them about the trauma that Israel is in, it's like, yeah, we acknowledge what happened on October 7th, but get past it. What you've done since, I'm like, that is part of the Hamas warfare. It's a built-in part. They're not the only ones who do it. Hamas have done it, Hezbollah do it, and the Iranians as a country. And all of them have done it before, and they amplify it and strengthen it from October 7th, which means I, Israel, am in worse place internationally than I have ever been before. Ever.
That's why I'm actually not understanding how could the whole world who saw this, how does this work?
They didn't see this. They saw an edited version of this. They saw it through a framing that was a framing that this is about oppressed against oppressor. It's about freedom and dignity. And the humiliation of the Israelis is something where when you are preaching to people in that sense, or talking or presenting it as being the oppressed, you're talking to the age of under 30s, disconnected, freedom, people with good intentions, okay? And the onus, the challenge, together with all of that, is that the atrocities that happened on October 7th in their live stream to terrorize us, they didn't stay there. And from October 7th, we have had to prove, and you go, it took too long. We were in trauma. I'll give you one example, which is a horrific one. The horrific sexual crimes that happened on October 7th were not live streamed. People saw them. In that first day, they got to hospitals. You know what you do at a hospital. It's an ER. People were coming in with their heads chopped off. None of the women were checked at that stage for the sexual horrific acts that happened. Because when you do it in the ER and the different things, 700 people came in one day. What a horrible thing I have to explain, right? And that means that the documentation just of the sexual crimes, I'm not even talking about the murders and everything else, is a process that literally only started a week, 2 into it. I have to gather the evidence, and now I have to prove it. Because the live stream pictures that Hamas put out from October 7th don't include that. And if every once in a while you see a clip that has to do with that, they say, yeah, that was one guy, but it's not what the Israelis are saying. It's these 2 different versions. And that this attack, as it was presented, is about the oppressed against the oppressor. These parallel different visuals of the terror as opposed to both the humiliation of the Israeli have to do with a generational aspect of delegitimizing Israel and a very well-planned media manipulation campaign that was initiated from October 7th. They've done it in the past, it's not new. Why did it succeed so horrifically for me from October 7th? Is because what changed in the meantime is the understanding and amplification of social media. What's trending, what's not trending, what you view, what you don't view. And what's happened is the echo box. So I have discovered in the last 7 months that the Israeli echo box, meaning Israelis, Jews, not that it's all of the Jews, those who are pro-Israel who live within them, as an echo box, did not have the same impact as the echo box of the oppressed. And the worst part, which is happening worldwide, is that these voices that to me are very extreme are making a Hamas terror narrative a mainstream one. That it's about freedom, dignity, justice, and human rights, rather than that horrific terror narrative to destroy the state of Israel. And we're going low and lower. It's getting worse and worse.
And me actually being a foreign journalist and living here for 15 years actually, and this I just don't understand how people can just pick up and run and just spread like a wildfire. You mentioned about the echo box, and the echo box here is smaller than the bigger echo box here, but how could they influence this? Because if they don't even know where the river and the sea is, they could have been easily influenced by us too.
All I can say is that I think that Israel in this sense is very bad and even inadvertently makes everything that much worse. We think we're right and the other side is wrong. But I just gave you 2 framings, okay? What if both sides are right and both sides are wrong? I just gave you a different framing. Because it's about being right or wrong, and that's the Israeli position, what developed over the years is that we're appalled that when we make people choose, because they have to choose us because we're right and they're wrong, oh my God, they choose the other side. Israel, and the subject that we were talking about before in that sense, because we are a society that is conscripted, and you do not have the draft, In most Western democracies in the world, I don't want to say Western, in democracies in the world, you barely have the draft. Korea is an exception that you have relatively a lengthy draft for the men. But if you go into any of the European countries, let alone the United States and other democracies, they don't have the draft at all. And if they do, it's for 6 months. And even that 6 months, you can do something else instead. In Israel, the draft is for 2 to 3 years. That's a very long time. It's at the age of 18 to 21. It's the same age as the echo boxes. And we do not necessarily understand the impact in our own society that we take for granted that we talk security. You've been here 15 years, you already talk security too. Because people who live here and view the way that we view it, it becomes a way that we talk about things. I take for granted that A, we have a military, B, we need a military, that there are real threats, and I describe the threats. Everything I just said right now is very security oriented. There's a whole different language around the world when it has to do with security, let alone with war. And I'm going to call it, for lack of a better term, the humanitarian language, where you're first of all saying war is bad. Security people say that war is bad too, but we kind of take it for granted. When you say war is bad, I say war is bad, and then I discuss what the threats are. You say war is bad, shouldn't be. And then the focus of the war is on the victims. I hate to be the security person, and I'm going to be that right now. War is not about the victims, but I just made a security statement. When you look at the war as being about the victims, it becomes a horrific statistic game. 25,000 to 1,500. It's because every single one of them is a person. Every single one of them deserves a better life. And I see that as the challenge right now, because that gap over the last 25 years, the delegitimizing of Israel is also focused on that gap. And the success of that Hamas terror narrative who says, I'm the victim, I'm the oppressed victim, so feel sorry for me. And the attack I did is the oppressed people against what the horrific oppressor did. And we didn't really do the atrocities, by the way, and make them prove that we did the atrocities. And we have to bring it out. It's so hard for our own society. I give you those gaps of where we are because we made, I say that, I've been saying this for many, many years, that we make them choose. It's either or. And the bulk of the world chose the other side, and we can't understand that because they're on the unjust side. And I'm going, no. This is vastly different ways of looking at the world. And at the end, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, Hamas is a homegrown Palestinian terror organization and social movement. It's both. And here we are. What do I do? That there is an organization that calls for my destruction. It always has. But what am I going to do to the 2.2 million people just in the Gaza Strip? I'm not even talking about the 3 million people in the West Bank who overwhelmingly support Hamas. That gap is one where I'm looking at it through the threats, through what they say about me. And most of the international community is saying, you didn't give them another choice. HJ, we didn't give them another choice. So is it my fault? And then I'm going back and saying, they call for my destruction. Am I supposed to help them establish a state that's going to destroy me? And I'm back inside a very challenging arena.
Never-ending story.
In the last decade, the social media, the echo boxes, the either or have made it even harder. So I don't want it to be a never-ending one. But right now I want to exist, and I want to exist as a legitimate state. Part of that for me as a democracy is acknowledging that there's the other side, that it hates me. Not all of it are Hamas operatives. And to try and find the way that I meander within that. And understanding that there are people on the other side, because when I ignore it, I've just alienated the entire world.
How do we actually set the record straight? Where actually one of the things that as a challenge as a journalist, they don't want to hear what the truth is. They want to hear what they want to hear.
First of all, I'll use my kids, which I always use, right? Okay? I have 3 kids. They're in those ages, as I said, they're conscripted, but they're in the exact same social media as the 25-year-old Koreans, okay? At the end, everybody meets within their echo box, okay? Which means that when this war started, for example, on October 7th, my daughter, who follows all sorts of influencers, she was like, are you kidding me? And she exited groups after group after group after group because of things like that. It was like, are you kidding? You know nothing about it and you're taking a stand. And influencers worldwide right now are being demanded to take a stand. So when you say, what can we do with it? The first thing is that all of those who say either or, my answer is, who says, and I say that to ourselves, I do not want to pose this as either or. Because if I do either or, the bulk are going to choose the side that does not have rights in its own way. And I'm very challenged by that term also. Why don't they have it? Part of that blame is on me. It can be around the world. I understand that, okay? They're the oppressed. I don't think either one of us can understand what it means to be a member of a community that for 3 generations, if not 4, they've never had citizenship of any country. I get that. That's hard, okay? But it's not about either or. That's the difference in that sense of say, you say from the river to the sea. And I'm saying, how about both? Come here, say, how about both? Why is it about this erasing in that sense? And that to me, Israelis won't say that because that's a political opinion. And I come out and I say that because I'm saying if we're not erasing them, and we're not, they have grown enormously over the last 75 years, both within the areas that we didn't occupy, that we do occupy. Everywhere they are, the Palestinians have grown from a much smaller number to a bigger one. What they lack is that independence and state. It's like, okay, get that, been in a process. And the only way to me to change is to enter into the echo boxes that are against and not try to tell them that, again, I'm right, you're wrong. What about the truth? Which I'm with you. There is a truth, okay? It's to slowly, all I need to do, as far as I'm concerned, is to broaden. It's like to say, okay, do you know, I mean, you say that, okay? It's to ask the questions and to make people who I want to think at the end are educated and decent. Say, you're saying this. Can I ask you a question? What about that? Not as a history lesson, but just to broaden the lens.
Thank you so much for your amazing wisdom and your analysis. And it's been so enriching for us. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for allowing me both to speak to you and to try in my own ignorance to think about faraway places for me like Korea. A real pleasure talking with you.
תודה רבה.
בשמחה.